Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you for checking out today's video. I know this is a little bit different than what we typically do here on the channel, but I thought it would be fun and interesting nonetheless. AI is everywhere right now. It is taking over. Everything is AI video, picture, captions, comments, everything's generated by AI. And it's sort of frustrating, and I think it has a lot of negative energy around it. A lot of people don't like it, but it's supposed to be a positive thing. It's supposed to be a tool. It's supposed to be helpful. And I want to put that to the test today and see how helpful is it right now. But we're going to keep it car related because what I want to ask AI is if it can help me work on my car. Now, obviously, I know how to work on my cars. I can do pretty much anything on this car. I just did a clutch job the other day, pulled the transmission, yada, yada, yada. But we're going to ask it something very simple. Can you help me change my oil? I asked ChatGPT, hey, how can I change the oil in my 2015 Volkswagen Golf TSI? Now, somebody that's never done an oil change on a car or never worked on a car before, what I want to see is, can that person ask AI, hey, how do I do this? And get a step-by-step instruction on how to do it and do it successfully. We are going to try and follow it step-by-step. I'm going to pretend I don't know anything about cars, and I'm just going to do what it tells me to do. And then if it tells me something wrong, I will show in the video, I'll correct it and let you guys know if it got it wrong or right. Today we're gonna be doing an oil change on this car because it is overdue for sure. And I have all the right tools to do it. I have all the right materials to do it, but we're gonna see what ChatGPT thinks. So the first thing it told us, changing the oil on our Volkswagen is pretty straightforward. Here's a step-by-step guide. So it's given us tools. First thing it lists is floor jack and jack stands. Perfect. Socket wrench with extensions, 19mm socket, oil filter wrench or strap wrench, funnel, oil drain pan, and torque wrench. It also suggested I get a box of gloves. And then I asked it about the oil, and it told me that I need 5 quarts of 5W30 or 0W20 in a Volkswagen 502 spec oil, and also the oil filter, and it gave me the part number. So I have the OEM filter, I have the oil, I have everything here. It also says to get a new drain plug or a drain plug washer. So we have everything we need to get started. Let's see what it tells us to do. All right, so it wants us to get the car on a flat level surface, done. It wants us to allow the car to cool down, done. And it wants us to gather up our tools and materials. So we have our oil, we have our oil filter, we have our filter socket, we have our 19mm socket, we have our wrench, we have our extensions, and we have our torque wrench. So there we go. All right, it wants us to jack the car up and secure it with jack stands. Great. My issue with this is that it didn't give us a whole lot of information. So let's say I've never worked on a car before, I've never used a jack or jack stands before. It doesn't give us much detail. It just says do it. So if you don't know what you're doing, they don't give you a whole lot of information here. But another gripe that I have is that it didn't say anything about making sure the car was in park or that the e-brake was pulled or nothing. So for all we know, I could just not know that and not have the e-brake engaged, and then the car could roll back when I lift it up and fall on me. So please make sure you have your emergency brake or your parking brake engaged when you're doing this. All right, so we have the car lifted up and supported on jack stands. What's next? All right, so now our AI friend is telling us to get underneath the car and locate the drain plug, which should be located on the oil pan. I would hope so. If you don't know what an oil pan looks like, I guess you're SOL. It's also telling us that the oil filter will be located towards the front of the engine, accessible from the bottom. So we might as well take all of our stuff underneath with us so we don't have to keep climbing in and out underneath the car. So we got our oil drain pan, we have our regs, we have our filter because that's on the bottom of the car, we have our filter wrench, we have our 19mm drain plug socket, we have our torque wrench, we have all of our tools. So I'll see you guys underneath the car where we get to do all this fun work. What the fuck? All right, so I already knew this, but I did it just for dramatic effect. The oil filter is not actually on the bottom of the car. The AI made its first mistake. It's actually located on the top of the car. Here, they could have said towards the front passenger side of the engine compartment. There's our oil filter. I don't know why it said it's accessible from the bottom. It's not. Here it is at the top. There's no way you're taking that oil filter off from the bottom of the vehicle. So again, it's just using generic information, I guess, and not doing vehicle specific like I asked it to. But let's go ahead to issue number 2. Here is our drain plug. Does that look like a 19mm drain plug to you? Because it doesn't look like that to me. It also doesn't look like I need a torque wrench to torque down that drain plug because it's a freaking flathead. And I'll be completely honest with you, this is my first oil change in this car, and I think this is actually pretty stupid. I've never in my life seen a drain plug use a flathead screwdriver. That is just so weird to me. And I guess that's just what you get when you get German quality engineering right there. You get this kind of drain plug. Wow, look at that laminar flow. Anyways, we are draining the oil into our oil drain pan here. So our AI friend at least got that right. We're draining this now. Once this is all out, we'll put the drain plug back on and then we'll go back up top to our filter. I'm going to move on to the next step, which is telling me is to remove the oil filter and replace it with the new filter. So using my oil filter wrench, well, there's kind of a problem here. It didn't tell me what size oil filter wrench. It just said oil filter wrench. And this actually doesn't really require an oil filter wrench. This requires a 32mm socket. And it might be a little bit easier to access with this engine cover removed, which it doesn't say anything about, but we have a 32mm socket. So all we're going to do is loosen that. It does say counterclockwise, and that is correct. And we're just going to loosen this up. There we go. It's also a little confused because I think it thinks that this car uses a generic oil filter based by the wording. It sounds like it wants me to just take the new filter, lube up the O-ring, and screw the new filter on. However, this is one of these cartridge style filters where we're going to remove this, put that in our drain pan, let any extra oil drain out of that. Then we're going to take that O-ring off of there, put this new O-ring on, and put the new filter in, and then we'll be all good to go. So here is the new one. This is the exact part number that it told me. It is correct. So that's good. At least it got me the right filter. We're going to get this put into the housing and we'll screw it back on. So I got most of that oil drained out of there. I'm going to take this O-ring off and just pull that off of there. We'll put the new O-ring on. All right, we got the new O-ring on. There's already kind of oil on it. I'll just take a little bit of this used oil and just rub it on the ring. It's fine. We're gonna take our new filter, slide it in, click it into place, and reinstall it onto the housing. Volkswagen actually gives us the torque spec right on top of this thing. So even though AI didn't tell us, Volkswagen did. 25 plus 5 Newton meters. I just go till it's tight. Good enough. I think that is 25 plus 5 Newton meters right there. So now it finally wants me to pop the hood, but the hood's already popped, and remove the oil fill cap. And then it wants me to put in 4 quarts of oil and then let the car run, check the oil. So there is 2 more problems here with the AI. Problem number 1 is it wants us to add 5W30 or 0W20 oil. Nowhere in the manual for this car does it say anything about 0W20 oil. It says 530 or 540 only. So problem number 2 is that it wants me to put in 4 quarts of oil and then allow the car to run and check it, and I should have it topped off at around 4.9 quarts of oil. However, this car takes 5.8 quarts of oil. This is the 1.8 liter Volkswagen engine, gasoline engine. So instead of adding 4 quarts and then checking the level and then adding till like 4.9 quarts or until it's full, I am going to put in 5 quarts and then drop it to the floor and then check the oil level and then work my way up to 5.8 quarts instead of 4.9 quarts. So that's an entire quart off, which could damage your engine in the long run. So make sure you always double check. Do not rely on ChatGPT. All right, so I did open the garage door so we can have the car run for a couple of minutes and just let it all warm up, cycle through. I'm gonna clean up my tools, and then it told me to clean up any oil spills, which is cool. Obviously you wanna do that. And then one thing that I did like that it did was it told you, it didn't say, hey, go dump your oil out in a cornfield somewhere. It says, you know, go recycle your used oil, which you should always do. And it tells you that you can do that at an auto parts store, which is nice because a lot of people don't know that. You can take this used oil in this sealed container to an auto parts store, dump it out in a used oil jug, and boom, you're good to go. Check our oil one last time. And it looks like we might want to add just a little bit more. So that's why it's always good to start it up, let it cycle through because that filter will absorb some of that oil also. So I'm going to add just a little bit more oil, top it off, and we'll be all done. So that's it. We finished changing the oil in my 2015 Volkswagen Golf. But how did the AI do? Well, I don't think it did so hot. And you guys can be the judge and let me know what you think. But overall, I think it did not so good. We had no 19mm drain plug to speak of. The torque rating just didn't make any sense because, well, look at the drain plug that we have. It also thought that we had a traditional, like, regular filter, not the actual cartridge style filter. At least that's what it seemed like. It gave us the wrong type of oil, the 020 oil that's not recommended by Volkswagen. And it also gave us a quart less oil. So it's told us to put in 4.9 quarts of oil instead of 5.8. So overall, I think the guidelines were there and the guidelines were okay. It was missing things like the parking brake. It was missing things like that I think could have been added. But overall, I think it did okay. And I think it'll improve. But ChatGPT is kind of weird. So I've also asked it questions like, hey, I have this Volkswagen Golf 1.8. It's got an upgraded IS20 turbo and a downpipe and all this stuff. Would you recommend using a different oil? And it's like, oh yeah, use this oil or whatever. And I don't know what it's using for those results. If it's doing some kind of crazy deep dive where it gets into, I don't know how that stuff really works, but I do know that I don't trust it just yet. So don't go asking AI, hey, what turbo is gonna fit on my car? Or, you know, what size wheels can I run? I would just do your own research. Make sure you thoroughly investigate anything you're gonna do to your car before you do it. Overall, I think it did all right. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you wanna see next. I'll see you guys in the next one.